Hello everyone. So today I'm guided to speak about forgiveness. I have been talking about forgiveness for a long time, and I have realized that every time my consciousness has moved and I have become aware of certain truths and I have gone deeper, my understanding of forgiveness has also shifted. And a few years ago, I realized that probably we have actually got this whole concept of forgiveness really wrong. And today, finally, I want to talk about it. Now, why I was hesitant to talk about this before is one, whenever we receive some form of information and when there is an aha moment, it is important to stay with it, to feel it, to imply it, practice it, see the ripple effects of it, be observant. How does this information shift things for me? Also, it is important to understand, is this information just for me and applies only to me, or is it something that needs to be shared? So it's important, at least for me, I don't know how other people do it, but for me, that whenever I receive an information, whether it is channeled or it is an insight through my workshops, I need to stay with it. And this is my pet dialogue, that if someone asks me a question or there is an aha moment, I really need to stay with it, because I need to feel it, I need to know it, I need to put it into practice. I need to really be sure of it before I want to share this information or wisdom with the masses. You know, as energy workers or people who are teachers and mentors, it is also a big responsibility to not to mislead and misguide people. Hence, every time an information shows up, I need to stay with it, I need to understand it, I need to really apply it and see how does it affect my system, and then I slowly share it with few very close set of associates, my students who have been with me, and ask them to apply it and then see the changes. And then once I realize, okay, this seems to be a universal information and it is a wisdom that needs to be shared, then I would like to share it. So today, as I woke up in the morning to meditate, I knew I had to be speaking about forgiveness. But before I come to the topic of forgiveness, let's have a little bit of background about how all these laws work and why is it that I'm approaching the topic of forgiveness very differently from maybe a lot of people. And also, I have been teaching people and asking them to practice forgiveness. But let's understand, forgiveness, like anything else on our journey, has its own layers. And as our understanding and realization of ourselves become better and our consciousness expands, then every meaning and every event and every situation and every person and every experience and also every concept changes its meaning, because now we are understanding it from a very deeper level of knowing. So, as you know, we live in a universe of polarity. However, from the source consciousness or God consciousness or Christ consciousness, there is really no right and wrong. There is no polarity. At a soul level, everything is always happening the way it should be happening. We all are always in the right place at the right time, meeting the right people, doing the right thing. Even though some of them looks like blunders, some of them look like real big sins, they can make us uncomfortable, they can make us judge ourselves and others, and they can be against our moral values, principles. And of course, it doesn't mean if we are harming or hurting someone, that's really actually a good thing. By saying that we are at the right time for the right thing, for the right reason, I am not negating the fact that if someone has hurt you or you have hurt someone, that's actually a good thing to do. What I'm trying to say, that even though it wasn't something pleasant, and even though it was something which at that moment looked like not being for the highest good of all, and even though consciously, subconsciously, unconsciously, all of us have lied at some point, have done things which weren't right, at least in our own eyes. We have done things for which we have felt shame, guilt, regret. We have been deceitful, jealous, in a state of competition and all that. But for that moment, it was correct because there was a reason for it, and we were supposed to learn a lesson. We were supposed to move from that level of consciousness of, let's say, hate, anger, jealousy, deceit, betrayal, and learn and heal that and move above it. So if we understand this in essence, that nothing can ever be wrong, and the reason is that everything that is happening is always happening with the consent of the divine. And even though things can be ugly, there would always be a reason or a karmic baggage or a lesson in those situations. There's also always a gift of, let's say, abandonment for someone can be that the person becomes so strong and becomes so powerful in its own being that takes care of itself and becomes extremely resourceful, powerful, influential person. The gift of poverty can be that the person grows up, really works smartly and nicely, gracefully, and becomes so resourceful that can actually help other people and empower them by teaching them how to look after themselves, and so on and so forth. We have a choice to learn from every situation, good, bad, ugly, the good things, and also we have a choice to actually become worse. It is our choice. But at that moment, whatever is happening and whoever is doing it, it is because we have asked for that experience and there is an exchange happening. Ideally, as human consciousness, we must try and make all these exchanges more graceful, more love-filled, joyful, beautiful, and the intention should be for the highest good of all. And we should try and refrain from hurting each other, especially at a conscious level. But humans, and we are. So we always do things which are not supposed to be done a lot of times, and then we are supposed to learn from them. So coming from this understanding that 1, everything happens with the consent of the universe. 2, the universe is not capable of creating anything which is wrong, which is bad, and which is ugly. So if something like that is there, it means there is an energy block or imbalanced exchange and some karmic baggage, and we are supposed to here to learn from it, heal it, release it, and then forgive it. So now if this is the background and if nothing can be wrong, so then who are we seeking forgiveness from and who are we forgiving? The interesting part of forgiveness, if we don't understand this concept at a deeper level, is that unfortunately even forgiving can come from a space of ego. And if I have to explain that, I would like to say that a lot of people, as per my observation of working with over 13,000 people, is that they find it very easy to forgive the other person. A lot of times. 80% easier to forgive others than the self. It is also a lot easier to forgive something that happened in a past life. And unfortunately, our ego is so powerful and it's so cunning and it's so manipulative that can use any concept to not let our consciousness expand and to keep us in its own grip. And forgiveness seems to be one such concept. Now, a lot of people forgive others and they come from a space of believing that I am the better one. even though I have been a victim, and even though things went wrong with me, I am so great, so benevolent, so generous, so nice. I'm such a poor thing, and I'm such a graceful person that I can easily forgive. So you see, when it comes to forgiving others, it can be easier because it is a shallow understanding of the whole concept of why life is happening and why it is happening this way. And it is coming from a space of ego that I'm better. Despite all that happened, I can forgive. But the truth of the matter is, this kind of forgiveness never works. Because maybe you let go of that person, but you will keep creating similar situations where you need to do the forgiveness again. And then you keep wondering, why is this happening to me again and again? Why me? Why am I having this pattern? It is because you are forgiving from a space of ego. You haven't healed that part of you which is causing these kind of experiences, inviting these kind of experiences. Because whatever is outside of us is a reflection or a projection or a mirror of who we are. And every person we meet who hurts us, who cheats, who betrays, or even who does good is only someone we have invited for that exchange, with someone we have had a soul contract, because we haven't been learning our lessons, because we needed a push, because we needed someone to acknowledge that or show us that there is something wrong somewhere and we must do something about it. Now, why this way of practicing forgiveness? As per me, it is powerful. Don't get me wrong. And I'm not saying this is wrong. I'm just saying this is not enough if you're really looking at healing your life, shifting and transforming, and then expanding your consciousness. So then what is the real forgiveness? The real forgiveness is when you can actually forgive yourself for all the choices you have made, all the things you have done or not done, whether in this lifetime or any other lifetime. And why is this so much more difficult than forgiving someone else? Is because, again, the ego. The ego does not want to believe that I was so dumb and so naive or so hateful or so, let's say, manipulative and mean and whatever, all those wrong or bad or unpleasant adjectives that we can use for ourselves, that I would make such choices, or I would invite such ugly experiences, or I believe that I deserve this kind of a treatment or punishment. Hence, forgiving the self is actually the real forgiveness. When I forgive myself for all that I have done, knowing that I do not wish to repeat it, and really make a conscious effort to break those patterns. Conscious effort can be by just thinking, remembering, refraining from doing those things or taking those decisions or allowing those certain situations to repeat, or actually maybe taking therapy and understanding from where all these are coming and then actually breaking those patterns. So it can be any way of consciously working at it. And one by one, picking up on oneself's shadows, all the choices, all the decisions, all the wrong moves, all the negative, ugly things we have done, or sometimes we haven't done, we have just wished, thought, intended. One by one, pick them up, recognize them, acknowledge them, and then understand that this is who I really am. The darkest of the dark of me and the lightest of the light of me, the animal in me and the God in me. And then collectively forgive myself for all that I have done, releasing the shame, the guilt, the resentment. It doesn't matter who has hurt us, and it doesn't matter what happened. It was ugly, it was hurtful, it was painful, it was difficult. I agree with all of that. But we must take ownership of our life and understand at some level, either at the soul level or at the conscious level, somehow there was a need for us. And we thought either we deserve or we must go through this experience, and we must make these wrong choices because we eventually need to learn and overcome, let's say, an addiction or a cruelty we have done in a past life, some kind of obsessiveness inside of us which we are not even aware of, and eventually forgive ourselves for our ignorance. The ego does not want to acknowledge that it has remained in ignorance for so long. Hence, the self-forgiveness is the most difficult part, and it is the actual work of forgiveness. After we have forgiven the dog who barked a lot, the neighbor who troubled, the husband who cheated, or the wife who took the child and went away, and the one who betrayed and lied and all of that, eventually the last bit of work, which is the actual work, is self-forgiveness. We must forgive ourselves for the times we have betrayed ourselves, for the times we have believed we deserved punishment, for the times we were full of hate and rage and we caused harm and hurt to others, for all the animalistic part of us which wanted to rip everyone apart out of anger, jealousy, hate, and also for the part of us who refuse to acknowledge those parts. Because unless we put the light, the flashlight on all of us and see all the dark and the ugly and the shadow, there is no way we will move forward, no matter how many people and situations we forgive. I wanted to share this message and tell you that start with forgiving the self. It is the most difficult part of forgiveness. And stop being naive. Stop thinking that if I sit behind the sofa and I put my head down, no one crossing would see me. Stop believing life is shallow and random, and stop believing that others are responsible for what you're going through. Each one of us is exactly, completely, fully responsible for the experiences we go through. You may argue and say, but I was just 8 years old and this is what my aunt did or this is what my dad did. You had a soul contract. You chose to go through those experiences because you had to learn. And if you're still bitter, and if you're still a victim, and if you're still blaming others, it only means you haven't still learned the lesson. And you are going to invite more and more people to do that to you. And this is what the ego does not want to believe and accept, because how can I be so stupid to call over and over again the same experience that is so painful to me? I cannot do that. I am way more smart. But the truth is, it is not. So start with forgiving yourself. If you don't agree with what I'm saying, that's also perfectly fine. And I also want to share with you, a lot of you write emails to me to ask questions. You can always put those questions in the comments, and I will try and make a video or answer in the comments. But don't please overload me with emails now asking questions or commenting or thanking me for the video. You can just put everything in one place, and if you need a topic that you want me to explain, you can always write it in the comment, and I would be more than happy that if my wisdom allows, and if I'm allowed and guided, to actually share what I know, and I hope that would serve you. Thank you for watching. Till we meet next.